Have a question for me or next week's guru? Post it below. What's up, Paranormal Addicts? I'm Luna Graff and welcome to Beyond Natural. This week I'm covering Case 11 plus a fantastic guru interview on Paranormal Tech. Now, the clients for Case 11 contacted Supernatural Truth due to some extremely strange occurrences happening in their home, including unseen playmates with their children, scratches on the homeowners, hearing music, voices, windows opening, and other physical torment. Before I launch into the highlight clips, I wanted to talk about things that masquerade as a haunt. Now, sometimes things can happen in a home that make people feel as if there is paranormal activity, but these things can usually be recreated and fixed. Some offenders can be loose pipes. If you have pipes that are not secure, they could bang around. Air pockets in the pipes or water pressure issues could easily cause random noises, strange sounds, and even turn faucets on. Cold spots, doors slamming shut. These situations can happen due to humidity, the changing of the seasons, and air pressure within the house. I'm crazy. Whew. EMF. High levels of EMF, coupled with a ton of electronic appliances running, could be giving you a sense of being watched, uneasiness, etc. Old appliances are definitely big offenders and tend to leak more EMF than newer ones. Batteries, lights burning out fast. Now, this could be based on the quality of the lights or batteries you purchased. In addition, shorts in electrical wires and other electrical situations could be a cause. Don't dismiss anything, but don't actually jump to claim everything is paranormal. Bottom line, know about houses, not just the equipment you use. Understand the different natural things that can take place in a home. Recreate any claims that you can to help determine if you have a masquerader in your midst. You can search the internet about the topics mentioned on today's show for specific causes and equipment that can help you detect things like humidity levels. Plus, ask questions. The good way to start eliminating masqueraders is by asking your clients appropriate questions prior to an investigation. Now, for those who may be thinking about having an investigation done in their home, please be aware that just because we are mentioning masqueraders here, that may not be what's happening at your house. These are just other things to be mindful of and to pay attention to help determine and make a difference between whether you're experiencing paranormal activity or not. Now back to Case 11. Our first clip is of Sarah and Sherry in the living room. They're catching shadows in both the living room and dining room areas of the house. Take a look.
Yeah, I just saw another shadow in the kitchen area.
I've been thinking that I see something behind the love seat here too.
Yep. Kind of where that one kitchen chair is. Yeah, I saw another shadow go around the corner.
Now, shadows are a little difficult to substantiate because, let's face it, you're investigating in the dark. Which is one of the reasons STPI likes to investigate with lights on or during the daytime if possible. Shadows can be counted as personal experiences though, and they are something to still be mindful of. Our next clip is what I like to call the double tap. Sarah and Sherry are led from the living room area to the dining room and then into the hallway from the kitchen. Check it out.
Okay, I just saw a red light over there too. Is there a window over there? Or is there
No, there's no there.
It looked like that, but it wasn't Tyler because Tyler was there.
I don't know what's happening. Did you hear that? There was a sound in the dining room. It could have been any normal sound.
That's true. Wait, do that here and then we'll check out.
Could have been.
Yeah, there's nothing but woods out here. See anything to you?
Nope.
Okay.
Interesting.
Very. You can brush our hair, tug on our sleeve, anything like that to let us know you're here. You can open or close some doors or cabinets. Make that noise again.
That.
I know. Maybe laundry? Should we look?
Look at this.
Oh.
Is it the
This is-
furnace or whatever?
Yeah, the water heater and the furnace are in here. Okay.
That could be
That could
clicky.
be what we heard then. Maybe we should hang out here for
Yeah.
a minute and see if we hear anything again.
Yep,
Okay, yeah,
that's what it was.
And yeah, I like snapping my fingers. Got a problem? First off, our pair of investigators are drawn into the dining room kitchen area by a green light flashing through a back porch door. This could honestly have been nothing, maybe a light flare off the glass, but I still applaud the detailed eye and the fact that Sarah and Sherry had to drive to find out what it was. Simultaneously, both of them were hearing a noise coming from the kitchen/hallway area. After finding no trace or visible explanation of the light in the window, they moved on. It didn't take them long to discover the source of the noise. This click draws back to the haunt masqueraders. If Sarah and Sherry were quick to claim, they could have said that the sound was spirit activity. In truth, they decided to track it down. Moving away from highlights, let's talk tech. So now, the guest guru of the week. This week's guest guru is Greysen. National Director with United Paranormal International, and an all-around tech wizard. My words, not his. Welcome to the Beyond Natural, Greysen. How are you doing today?
Wonderful.
Great. Well, our first question of the day for you is, what are your top pieces of tech equipment that every team should have, or what would you say are the bare minimums?
Every team should definitely have some type of digital camera, as well as maybe a backup of 35mm camera, as well as audio capture equipment, some kind of wireless audio. They have the digital recorders, the portable digital recorders, which are just wonderful for teams to use. And that's your basic equipment, camera and audio.
Okay. Are there any pieces of tech equipment that you may feel are not used properly, or maybe they're misunderstood?
Absolutely. What I have found in my travels is that if people are not familiar with their camera settings, and they need to understand the ISO setting, which is basically a way to increase the speed of capture. Also, what I've noticed is the use of electrical field detectors. It would depend on the detector. Tri-field meters are much easier to use in the field, whereas an item like a K2 is more of a vector meter, which reads the direction of a current flow.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
No, what it does is basically, it's a very sensitive piece of equipment, whereas a tri-field meter is actually looking at the field density. And a lot of people, need to get more familiar with the tech behind that, meaning the actual readings themselves. Are they, operating in milligauss, or with microtesla would be more appropriate, or are you getting actually a radio frequency? Perhaps even the addition of a radio frequency meter, which is something that I definitely bring into investigations to check for cell tower locations or any kind of terrestrial communication signals.
Very interesting. When you mentioned cameras and camera settings, and you mentioned that as part of that bare equipment, you think that's more important per se than maybe a video camcorder?
It's interesting. Video capture can be, it can be so many things. When you have several investigators stacked on top of each other, you could be producing an IR shadow or a flash shadow, which could be miscaptured by a piece of equipment as a, shadow person or a shadow figure. The placement of your investigators based on your equipment is crucial, so that you're not actually creating false data.
All right. Then moving back to equipment, is there any little known or maybe little used pieces of tech equipment that you think should be given more use in the paranormal field?
That's really interesting. There's a really cool device called the Firefly electronic wind detector, and it's basically used by hunters, but it's a really neat piece of equipment, and LT Cochran, who's the international director for United Paranormal International, was the one that actually turned me on to this piece of equipment, and thought it would be very valuable in order to detect, the slight breezes, that are detected on a case. Me personally, I bring in an anemometer,
interesting. That's another piece I've never even heard of before. Okay, well, our next question would be, what is the number one no-no you see other teams doing when they use their equipment?
It's funny because it really isn't a technical thing at all. It's assumption. It's that what I've noticed the biggest no-no is that people assume that they are getting paranormal, interaction. And what people really need to do is apply the good science to an investigation, meaning, to really narrow down, underground aquifers, topology, environmental factors, like I said earlier, cell phone signals, towers, the use of personal cell phone devices. Oddly enough, when you're doing audio review and data review, especially in the audio, you can normally tell if you're, coordinating with video, whether or not, hey, we had an anomalous, meter reading, electronic field meter reading, but you hear the cell phone signal in the audio. So it's another way to sort of like debunk your own, data capture. But that's the best thing you could do, because when you put out a piece of evidence, it's got to be the best. So I would say assumption is the biggest no-no.
Okay. So the pricing on current equipment, is it inflated due to growing interest, or is the equipment really worth that much?
And that's an absolutely amazing question. There is so much debate in the paranormal industry whether or not equipment is inflated. And I'm an inventor personally. I'm working on a safety device for police motorcycles. And it's something that I've been working on the patent for well over 10 years now. And now we're kind of in debate of, I'm letting some patents run out. But that process, the time spent, the resources, you have to have business plans, and you have to have investors, or you have to have capital, you have to have resources, you have to have knowledge, you have to have, the wherewithal, that kind of necessity being the mother of invention, but also having the wherewithal to look at something and say, hey, there's a need for this particular type of thing, and at first, that initial investment by the person that's producing that piece of equipment is really astronomical, especially if it's something that's going to get a UL listing. UL listings can be tens of thousands of dollars because of the testing. My particular device that I'm working on, which is completely separate, I won't mention it, but I have to have a military testing agency do the testing because there's fluidics, there's vibration, there's fog, smoke, salt, aerodynamics involved. It's not really a consumer product, but more geared for worker safety. Whereas a paranormal device, you got to think, this is something that could be brought into a historical location, and heaven forbid you want this thing to catch fire and burn a 200-year-old or more building down in the process. So a lot goes into the initial production of technology, and I think that's something that's generally misunderstood.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think a lot of people think about that, and I think it's more of I think there's a lot of variation too, depending on where you go and where you buy what you're going to get. So.
And I'm not saying that people don't profiteer, and oddly enough, you were going to ask me another question about websites that I'd recommend, and I produce paranormal equipment, and again, I'm not here to promote my website. I'm not about that. Really, why I create equipment is for fellow investigators. It's for people to help them out, to try to let's innovate the new technology, and because it takes time, it takes resource, and I have some of those to lend to it. So it's my pleasure to help them that way.
Awesome. In your opinion, then, what about how-to videos? They have a bunch of them available online. You can build paranormal tech using them. So are those reliable, or what would you suggest to people that are attempting to build their own?
It's really another great question. What's so funny about the videos is, I'm guilty of looking myself for certain things on how-to, only to find out, if it's something that I already know, maybe there's a better way to do it. But again, that's something that you have to use discretion with. You have to use caution. You have to consider the source, their technical ability. Is there some way to kind of, find out if the modifications and or, augmentations of devices or construction of devices, were they qualified, that they do the proper testing? Are there conditions, to work in safe? Most of these people might be trying to do this at their dining room table. Meanwhile, you need shop conditions where you have concrete on the floor and flammables, not close, where if something goes wrong on your dining room or kitchen table, it falls on the floor, you're catching the house on fire.
Understandable. Well,
so I would say it's your own risk.
It's a use with caution kind of thing.
Absolutely. absolutely. Anytime you play with electrics or electronics, there's a risk of fire or explosion. And that's another thing that people don't realize is explosion. Capacitors and burns. I mean, capacitors put out an enormous amount of energy in a very short amount of time. And if somebody doesn't know how to handle specific pieces of equipment, they can injure themselves pretty severely.
That is another thing I did not know. You're teaching me all sorts of new stuff today, Greysen.
Thank you.
Definitely agree. Well, that's all the questions we have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, I would just like to add that if people are interested in thriving in a drama-free environment, I'd love to have them come join us at United Paranormal International at www.unitedparanormalinternational.ningnetwork.com and come and join the discussions and the many experts and amazing people that are available as a resource. So it's a great place to become friends with people like yourself who are just amazing. It's just always a pleasure meeting friends on that network and pursuing the truth and the paranormal together.
I would have to agree again. See, we agree about a lot of things.
That's a good thing, I guess, right?
Yes, it is. Well, it was great having you on this show, and hopefully we'll have you back on again in the future.
Landry, it's been my pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
I would like to thank Greysen for taking the time to speak with me. He had some great insight for us, and I know how busy he is. Now, on to the evidence. Our first clip is from the Style Cam. Now, real quick, we call this the Style Cam because it came with software to turn your footage into thermal-esque video. We don't use the software. Anyway, at this point in the evening, we were down to 2 investigators in the home, Destin and Greg. Each had their own camera and were Blair Witching it through the house. Not only is there an EVP on this clip, we also caught a shadow-type figure in the footage. Let's watch.
A breeze just blowing through.
Like
It almost like it was like.
Greg is explaining a breeze that came through. Look over his shoulder in the doorway. Let's slow it down for you.
and it should be right here. See, look, this is the stationary cam that was in that room. You even can tell that it's not something from any of our equipment, a loose string or wire or anything.
I'm so afraid. Weird, right? As with all shadows, is it paranormal? Maybe. Well, we can't say for sure. It was certainly weird. Now, it's cool, though, because you can see that whatever is moving through, it's in the hallway. We had a DVR camera filming the hallway the entire evening, and it did not catch any movement during this time. Now, our next clip is an EVP caught on Sarah's digital voice recorder while her and Sherry are investigating the bedroom.
I'm gonna put these here. You can play with these. Make the numbers go up.
I always do that. It's not Sarah's fault the bed creaks. Obviously, they had a fart joke lover in their midst. Making noise. Our final clips are of footsteps in the hallway when Sarah and Sherry are in the home. Now, footage from our stationary cam will be seen. You will hear Sarah and Sherry talking, but listen close. The footsteps are there. Specifically, a few distinct ones halfway through the clip. Take a look. We're recording here. You know what I'm saying? Yo, what the hell? Just so you're aware, at this time, Sarah and Sherry were in the same bedroom that we saw from the EVP footage before, including the cameraman. They did not leave that bedroom during this time, so there's no one else in the house. Well, that wraps up this week's episode. Next week we'll be talking with Ryan Michaels. Our topic, psychics, how to deal and where can you get help. I'll also be looking at case 12, highlights and evidence. Till next week, keep it safe. Want to see more of each case? Check out our investigation highlights and evidence videos on the Supernatural Truth website at www.2stpi.com. Tonight.